Pop this article up right here, right now. Feel free to read through the details on this, and let's explain this. All right, so this goes all the way back to the summer of last year, 2025. USDA came in and called out to all the states and said, hey, yo, states, we're going to need you to comply with our orders and submit all beneficiary data to the federal government. A bunch of states complied, and a bunch of states said, no, we're not doing that. In fact, a coalition of 22 states came together and said, hey, USDA, F off, we're not doing this, right? So they literally told the USDA, we're not complying with your orders, we're not submitting beneficiary data, and we're not going to give it to you, okay? Well, then what's super interesting about this is that later on in the year 2025, USDA basically came back and was like, hey, if you do not comply by our deadline here, we're actually going to extract all your funding. We're not going to give you the funding that you need. Well, here's the deal. Remember, food stamps are federally funded, state administered. If the federal government does not give states money for food stamps, we would see the same situation that we saw in November, which is no money going out to beneficiaries because states are broke. States do not have any money to distribute it to the beneficiaries in the form of food stamp benefits. They need the money out of the federal government, okay? So it's vitally important. So when USDA, the federal government, essentially steps in and says, we're not going to give you money for the program or the beneficiaries if you do not comply, that's a pretty big warning sign because beneficiaries would not get that money because states do not have the money to distribute. They get the money from daddy, the federal government, right? Federal government is daddy to these states. Hey, daddy, can I get some money, right? Literally, that's the case, okay? And then states take that money and they distribute it to the beneficiaries. So the states are dependent on good old daddy, the federal government, right? So anyway, long story short here, U.S. District Judge Maxine Chesney out of the state of California has stepped in and basically said, we're not going to rule that the states need to comply with the USDA orders. In other words, basically giving the USDA the big old middle finger and saying, no, we're not complying. So that's actually really good for the beneficiaries. Why? For the same reason that we've seen out of other federal entities recently, which is the distribution of beneficiary data to who? The same department we've been hearing a lot about lately, DHS, otherwise known as ICE. Well, okay, it's not one and the same. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, basically oversees ICE, which is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, right? So ICE is within DHS. But my point being with this is that we've been seeing this across other entities, other government agencies, where we're seeing beneficiary and basically citizen data, beneficiary data being submitted to DHS/ICE, okay? Now, what are they doing with that data? Well, what do you think they're doing with that data, right? We all know what they're doing with that data. So they're looking for things like names, birthdays, social security numbers, addresses, all that kind of data like that, everything. Because basically what they want to do is make sure that only those individuals that are completely eligible, that are completely, well, let's just say it, all American, are basically getting these types of benefits. And again, we've seen this across many different federal government entities, agencies, and we're seeing this crackdown across the board. Well, because of these orders out of U.S. District Judge Maxine Chesney, basically these states are not going to comply. So the 22-state coalition that has come together and basically said, we're going to sue you, and they're doing that. They're literally suing the federal government to say, we're not doing this, we're not complying. Now they've got the U.S. District Judge backing, saying, nope, we're not going to comply, at least for now. At least for now, we're not going to. Now, could there be a point in the future where this happens? Yeah, 100% sure. I mean, that could happen at some point. But for now, and going all the way back to the summer of 2025, they have not complied with this. And again, some states have complied, a bunch of states have not complied as well. So here we are, I mean, you know, a few months into 2026 right here, right now as I film this video. So going back to the summer of last year, I mean, however many months that is, I don't know, 8-9 months or something like that, going back to the summer-ish, give or take a little bit. So, they're kicking the can down the road at the end of the day. It's certainly not a long-term fix here, but at any given point, this could be overturned, and these states could be required to submit all that data to USDA. But for now, they're in the clear, and they've got this judge's backing, which, is pretty good. At the end of the day, who's this going to hurt? It's going to hurt the beneficiaries. All beneficiaries? No, not even close. It'll hurt some people. Maybe a few 100,000 people, maybe a few million. I'm honestly not even sure the number, okay? I don't know if anybody really knows that number, because the only people that know that would be the states. But does every state know every detail around every beneficiary within every respective state? No, that's the detail, right? The states know the beneficiary data. The federal government doesn't, which is super interesting, right? Because remember, the food stamp, the SNAP program, federally funded, state administered. In other words, every single state has their own beneficiary rolls. Federal government doesn't really know, for the most part, the names of every single person. They know essentially the number of beneficiaries. They know how much money needs to be doled out to the states, about $100 billion a year, by the way, for the program. But they don't know details on every single beneficiary, but that's what they want. They want that data, and the states are saying, nada, get away. You're not getting this information, and they have this judge's backing. So for now, pretty good. Pretty good stuff for the food stamp beneficiaries, even though